Hi there, thanks for being here. Today I'm going to talk to you about how I made this little woodland cake for my daughter and how she was able to make some of the things herself. I'm going to talk to you about how I made those toadstool mushrooms and the big cake base that is full of delicious flavors and covered in a tree bark fondant. I'm also going to talk to you about the grasses and the flowers. Gumpaste is a really great tool to work with, and it doesn't really take a lot of skill. So here I am making my toadstool mushrooms. I just started kind of with a log of gumpaste, and I hollowed it out. I'm forming it into a tall, thin toadstool cap. I cut off those bits on the bottom and fluted them out a little, and then this is where it really starts to look like a mushroom because I'm adding those lines, those little gills on the bottom of a mushroom. That's when it's really starting to get exciting. So I prop it on a small dowel, and then I pop it on some styrofoam so it can dry. This is how my gum paste comes. It comes in plastic. You have to keep it wrapped because it dries out very, very quickly. So now I'm going to make the stem of the mushroom. I'm just putting it on a chopstick. And what I'm hoping you can see here is that I used to have a cake business a long time ago, but I never really specialized in fondant. And so this is very much an amateur take on how to make something really cool for your own kid. And so small piece of gum paste, and I'm just gonna roll this little tool to make that little beard thing. I need to look it up. I was gonna look it up. What's the scientific name for this? All I know is that, oh, look at that, it works. Okay, so we're gonna let those dry. Now this is a little technique that I'm not sure if anybody else has thought of this, but I thought of it a while ago. I use a food grade a food grade glycerin, and I'm able to mute the colors of my gel food coloring because I want to paint the stems of the mushrooms. And you know, the great thing about working with a subject that comes from nature is that it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the more irregular you can make it, the better it's going to look. And I also have some luster dust. So this is always fun to have. Just a little gold embellishments around this little furled beard of the mushroom. And to paint the caps of the mushroom, I wanted a very vibrant color, so I did not mix my gel food coloring with food grade glycerin to do this. And as you can see, I just use a paintbrush. I cover the whole thing, and then I pop it back on to the dowel to dry. And then I'll cover it with little spots after the food coloring dries. So there we go. Okay. Now, you know, this is also easy. I just mixed that bird. Did you hear the bird? There's a bird outside my window. It's so pretty. Anyway, I mixed the gum paste with yellow food coloring, and that's the way I make my flowers. Very simple, long strands of grass. I wanted some really large pieces of grass, so it made everything look kind of, you know, even, you know, stand out as if we're really looking at a miniature tree trunk with little baby hedgehogs. So I've got my spots on my toadstools now, and next I'm going to make those little baby hedgehogs. Now I'm not a sculptor, and I don't even work with polymer clay very much. Although after I made this for my daughter, I thought, you know, I want to make some more interesting animals next time. Maybe I'll practice with polymer clay. So a little hedgehog, you know, all you need is just a prominent little pointy nose and just some little stubs as feet. And now I'm making his basically, I don't know, what do you call that's on a hedgehog? It's just like a big mullet. He has like this mullet hairdo. So I thought, I'll just fashion a little mullet hairdo for him. Look at that. And then you know what? It pretty well passed for a hedgehog. I mean, it did. I tried to make a rabbit, but it just looked really strange. So I thought maybe I will challenge myself and get better at sculpting for other cakes down the line. So then, I just give that texture for his little spiky hair and 2 little holes for eyes and a little bitty mouth. And, that's great is that you can get markers to use on food. These are legit food markers. So there he is, little face. I mean, how cute is that? Okay, so what am I doing? So it was about this time of the day that I realized that Amazon had failed. Oh my gosh, Amazon failed to deliver my cake base, my cake board. And so I just went around my house and I found an IKEA table and I thought, you know what? I bet if I took that apart, I could use the top of that table for my cake board. Sure enough, that's what I did. So I took it right apart. And actually, it worked out really well. It was extremely, it was very load bearing, this thing here. So I got my cake, took it out of the fridge, put it on the fondant covered cake board. Now, this was my big mistake. If I could go back and do it again, I would have used cocoa powder with that chocolate fondant. But look at this. Okay, this is a silicone mat. And that's how I get that tree trunk texture on there. I mean, isn't that cool? So roll it again. There it is. So like I said, if I could go back and do it again, I would have used cocoa powder because it wouldn't have been white. But I thought, now this is a great thing about working with nature, okay? Nothing is perfect in nature. There's always going to be, all kinds of strange variations, and it's not perfectly symmetrical. So if you're going to play with fondant for the first time, I'm telling you what, this is a good project. So I decided to try and draw a bit of a root structure, and I needed one more piece. Oh, there it is. I needed one more piece to finish covering my cake, so I used one from the top. And so it worked out that I was able to kind of create some kind of root structure around the cake. So if you look at the bottom of the cake, whoops, you'll see it's not perfectly flat. Of course not, because it's a tree and trees aren't perfect. Now what I'm doing here is I am brushing water on my cake, and water is to fondant as glue is to paper, and gum paste as well. And so at this point, I'm realizing I need to work a little harder just to make sure this is really stable on here. And the paintbrush that I'm using to brush water on this actually was the same paintbrush I use to make my toadstools. So it's a bit of a red tinted water, which actually worked out pretty well in that it added just a warm hue on top of that tree bark. So I'm making the top of the tree trunk now, and I wanted to make it a kind of a marbled look because no tree trunk is perfect. And once again, wonderful nature, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I was able to just scrawl out these lines with a food safe marker, and it didn't have to be perfect because it's nature. There we go. Put it on the top, and then I grab my scissors and kind of cut it to shape where the bark is on the very outside, framing it kind of like a picture, like it would in real life. I grew up in Oregon, so I know a lot about trees, and I was like, I can do a tree trunk. I bet you I can with all those roots. Here I am wanting to make one more irregular root, and it's those little touches that create a good piece of art at the end. I think that they're not perfect, but they're kind of just novelty little bits. Okay, this is the fun part. So here I am putting my toadstools together. I am affixing the stem to the cap by just putting a little bit of buttercream in the cap of the toadstool and popping it on to the cake. And I'll tell you what, my daughter's little birthday guests, they loved these. They ate them. And what do they taste like? Sugar. They taste like sugar. The kids love them, especially with that buttercream on the inside. So I made a little picnic blanket out of another piece of gum paste, and I drew that design with those food safe markers, okay? And I'm actually talking right now on the Facebook Live, which I'll put a link to the Facebook Live if you want to see how, what I was saying. I put my little hedgehogs. Later on, I did affix those hedgehogs to dowels, so I was able to drive them into the cake and stabilize them. And so the next part, this is how, it was after the Facebook Live, I did that I put some green buttercream in a piping bag with a tip that has lots of little holes so you can make grass. And this, just adds more texture and more whimsy to the finished product. And here's my little daughter. Now, this is how I can include my children in these things. She wanted to be part of this too, and she really loved putting all those flowers on. And she also made that little pink cake. Oh, and that hand right there, that's my son. He was my best camera guy filming this. So I always try to make opportunities for my kids to take part, because this is not a professional cake. This is an amateur cake just for fun, and it was a big hit at my daughter's party. Anyway, I'd love a subscribe or a sub or whatever people say these days. So please subscribe and stick around. I usually just make normal food, but today it was fun to do this.